The rain poured without mercy. In an old, damp warehouse in Oklahoma City, the smell of mildew mixed with the flicker of a single buzzing bulb painted a scene that looked more like a ghost story than the birth of something great. Around a long, scratched table sat a handful of young people, faces tired, but eyes shining with a stubborn light. In the middle stood a man of average height, no fancy suit, but with a fire in his gaze that made everyone look up. This was Groeschel. "We're going to start a church, but not just any church." His voice was soft, but every word carried weight. "We're going to build a home for the broken, the rejected, the guilty, and the forgotten. A place where no one feels like they don't belong." At that moment, it sounded like madness. No real money. Just this empty warehouse. And a few friends who themselves were fighting battles in their own lives. But Craig had something none of them could ignore: faith, and a relentless conviction. The first step, a dream on the edge of failure. Craig had started serving in ministry back in his college years. But in the traditional churches he saw around him, something was missing. The grand buildings, the polished choirs, the polished sermons, yet the people on the streets, the addicts, the single mothers, the ex-convicts were often turned away or ignored. One night, sitting at the kitchen table, he told his wife Amy, "If we ever start a church, it'll be for everyone who thinks they have no place in one." Amy was quiet for a moment, then sighed. "Craig, that's going to be hard." He smiled. "Hard is what makes it worth it." Strange beginnings. In 1996, their first gathering took place in that warehouse. Chairs were mismatched. The sound system barely worked. The budget $99. But people came. Some were fresh out of prison. Some were recovering from addiction. Some were just divorced and trying to hold themselves together. One day, a young woman named Liz walked in. Her past was full of theft, drugs, and bad decisions. She sat in the corner and whispered, "I don't think God talks to people like me." Craig knelt beside her. "Liz, maybe you're exactly the person he's trying to talk to." That moment was a turning point. People began to see this wasn't just a church, it was a refuge. The technology leap. A few years later, a young volunteer named Bo came with an idea. "Craig, what if church didn't just stay in the building, what if we put it on the internet?" At the time, it sounded insane. But Craig laughed and said, "Crazy ideas are the ones that change the world." In 2006, Life.Church launched its first online church, open 24/7, accessible from anywhere in the world. During the first online prayer meeting, a man from Brazil sent a message, "I was going to take my life, but after hearing your prayer, I've changed my mind." That was the moment they realized this wasn't just Oklahoma's church anymore. This was the world's opposition and crisis. As Life.Church grew, so did the critics. Some traditional pastors scoffed, "They're turning faith into a brand, this is a show, not a church." Then came a real crisis. In one campus, financial misconduct was uncovered. The local media pounced. Headlines screamed, "Is Life.Church a scam?" Craig stood before the congregation and said, "We are human. Mistakes will happen. But we will not hide, we will make it right." He opened the financial books to the public, removed those responsible, and tightened policies. That transparency didn't destroy the church, it made it stronger. Changed lives. The years rolled by. Life.Church became one of the largest multi-campus churches in America. But the real story wasn't in the numbers, it was in the faces that had been transformed. Liz, the girl who thought God could never speak to her, became a leader in the children's ministry. The man from Brazil became a permanent online volunteer. And people who once swore they'd never step into a church, were now holding the doors open for others. The final twist. One rainy evening, Craig stood outside that old warehouse, their first building. Memories washed over him. A young man approached, notebook in hand, tears in his eyes. "I'm the kid whose father you visited in prison years ago. Today, I graduated from Bible school." Craig looked up at the sky. The rain had stopped. And it was as if God whispered, "This journey isn't over." The message. The story of Life.Church isn't about one man's success. It's about countless people who believed they could never change and did. It's proof that seeds of faith are never wasted. What began in an empty warehouse now lives in the hearts of millions.